Hi, this is Mark Arnold with yet another episode of Fun Ideas Podcast. And today I have an actor who has done many movies and many TV shows, probably best known for the TV show Lassie. And his name is Jon Provost. How are you, sir?
Good, doing great, Mark. Thanks.
All right. And wanted to get the plugs out of the way, but it's
Yeah,
because I want to talk about it. Okay, so here's your book. I
right.
met you a few times over the years, but
Oh,
most
sure.
recently last August. And this is the updated version of Timmy's in the Well, the Jon Provost story by Jon Provost and Lori Jacobson, who's your wife.
Yes,
And
correct.
we had her, I'll plug her book too, recently on podcast for Top of the Mountain, the Beatles at Shea Stadium 1965.
All
And
right.
that's in the archive. So if you want to listen
Now,
and or watch that, I got
now
that.
about that in the stadium. Well, I did not see them at Shea, but I saw them at Dodger Stadium, and then actually saw them again at the Hollywood Bowl. So,
Wow.
and yeah, and both times
Mhm.
you couldn't hear a thing,
Yeah.
because the girls were screaming.
Mhm.
You could actually hear well, that's not true. You could hear in the Hollywood Bowl because it was, designed for that. But with them sitting out on home plate, right,
Mhm.
with regular amplifiers,
Right.
just that you would have and small, like not, not a wall,
Mhm.
and then no sound system, and then nothing but
So they went through the announcer speaker
50,000
just
girls
like at
screaming.
Shea. They went through the announcer speaker just like at Shea.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, because they hadn't, it hadn't, the technology hadn't happened yet,
Right.
so that it lagged, a little bit behind, but it was crazy, but saw them.
Right, but also they didn't expect a big ah if Sandy Koufax ran out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's amazing to me when I watch all the old films. Now, I became a Beatles fan in the late 70s, but I was aware of them.
okay.
Too late to see him live because I was born in December of 66.
Yeah.
But I did eventually see Paul, and I've seen him many times, and Ringo many times. Chickened out to see George. I was going to fly to Japan, and then I said, "Oh, he's got a tour
Wow.
here." Of course, he never did.
Wow.
And I was kind of young when he toured in '74. I wasn't really a fan then, so.
Uh-huh.
Did you see any of them solo over the years?
Paul, we've seen Paul
Okay,
numerous times, and then of course, the All-Star Ringo.
right. But never
Actually, we've only
George on
seen
the '74 tour or
no, no,
Lennon
did not.
even on one of his few concert appearances.
No,
Yeah,
but that
yeah,
would have been insane. No, that would
yeah.
have really been special for sure.
Mhm. Well, at least I saw the group together.
Yeah.
Did you hear anything at all? Because you watch the films, you watch the Shea Stadium film, and of course, I think they did some overdubs and everything, and sweetened it and everything, and
Well,
yeah,
evidently they couldn't even hear themselves,
yeah,
with their monitor speakers or whatever they are. I mean,
yeah.
and they couldn't hear what was coming out, and they were just, evidently half of the time just goofing around,
Yeah.
but it was great.
I think it was Ringo who said, all I could do is watch their asses and see what they were doing.
Well, there you go. Then now we know. Now we
Yes.
know.
Anyway, okay. Let's see.
So that
I
was
don't
my
want
Beatle
yeah,
experience.
that's your Beatles experience.
Of course, listen to them every day.
So I read through your book. I read through your original version, and then this version, has been updated, obviously.
Right.
Is the only reason to update it because you decided to do it in a larger size, or was there other reasons for updating?
Well, a lot of time had transpired. I mean, obviously the original was '08,
Yeah.
and quite a bit of things have changed, family wise, business wise, everything. So people were so interested in, the story before. Well, this is just a continuation of the story
Hmm.
because I mean, and it goes on for sure.
Right. And in reading the book, you kind of write it like a diary. Now, did you keep a diary? I didn't catch that throughout the thing.
No, but that technique
Mhm.
Lori came up with.
Okay.
And no, I mean, mine was all memories. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm okay, I'm dyslexic, so I did not keep a diary. I mean, well, if I had, I would have been able to read it, but um actually, during in my college years and stuff like that, I did keep journals and what have you. Um but mainly it was just, me talking to Lori and her dragging things out of me and putting them down that way. But um, the unique way that it was put together, it's kind of like you look at what was going on and it triggers what was going on with you, at that time in your life
Right.
or whatever. And it just, everybody that's read it loved it.
Yeah. One thing I liked is how you type in other things that went concurrently with, say, Lassie, like, and of course, a lot of your friends were on those shows like the Donna Reed show or My Three Sons, and
Oh
you're
yeah,
still
yeah.
friends with some of them now. I
Oh,
mean, you
it's
can name names, of course.
a couple weekends ago. As a matter of fact, a couple weekends ago, we were with um Butch Patrick, who was Eddie Munster.
Right.
Yeah, and Keith Thibodeau, who
Hmm.
was Little Ricky on, I Love Lucy,
Hmm.
um, and Jerry Mathers, the Beaver.
Yes.
I mean, come on, So yeah, life goes on.
Now, do you hang out with all these various people socially, or just when you get together for like various events and stuff like that?
Well, truthfully, from even back in the day when we were kids,
Hmm.
um, it was mostly when we would see each other at an event or something like that. Yeah, we did socialize a little bit, but not like, buddy buddies.
Right.
Um, it's really kind of strange, but I don't know, maybe it's kind of like, visiting friends from a fraternity or something, because we cannot see each other for years, couple years, 5 years, and then boom, it's like, hey, I saw you yesterday,
Right.
and hey, we're both okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, we went through, because we all have so much stuff that we can share that we all did.
Right.
We all kind of grew up in the business, but different parts of the business have you.
Hmm.
A couple people I, have kept a lot closer with. Um, Jay North is one who was Dennis the Menace. Yeah,
Right.
Jay's a great guy. Um, uh, Stan and the Livingstons. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, well, Barry, he introduced Lori and I, and we're
Hmm.
coming on 25 years now. So
Well,
so I guess, yeah, we do keep we do keep in touch with each other.
right. Um, I did a book on Dennis the Menace, and I originally was not going to cover the TV show. It was mainly covering comic books, and then I said, I should do a whole survey on this and do the comic strip and everything. And so I eventually did the Jay North show. And
Okay.
you probably know this gentleman, Stu Showstack. He helped me out. I didn't actually interview
Oh
Jay
yeah, sure.
because he did a great interview, and I said, well, I'll just crib things. And then Jeannie Russell, who's also a friend of yours,
Yeah.
contributed some things and everything. But one thing is Jay always acted like on his commentary that he really was sheltered when you did those events like parades or whatever back then, and didn't socialize at all with the rest of you that much. It wasn't until later, when you got to be adults. Is that true?
Yeah, and that unfortunately, that wasn't his choosing.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I gathered
So
too.
yeah, so that's
Yeah,
that's unfortunate, and he
yeah,
had to pay for that.
yeah.
But yeah, Jay and I mean, we went to, most of us kids, um, well, acting kids, we didn't go to regular school. We went to private schools
Hmm.
or had tutors, because we were working. And Jay and I did go to, when we're filming,
Hmm.
to private schools together. So, we even saw each other like that. And I think that's why, Jay and I don't know, just, became a lot closer,
Hmm.
that reason. And um, Jay's mom, he didn't have a father in the picture.
Right.
Um, his mom was really close to my mom.
Mm,
And
okay.
I know they were both into early health foods and, making carrot juice, drinking carrot juice, and, just when like, hey, yeah, it is good. Some of the things that they told us back then that we thought were pretty corny turned out to be not so corny.
So going back to you, I'm sure you've been asked this a zillion times. It's some things I have to ask again, but even if
Sure.
I've read it in the book and just kind of curious about it, it's like as a child, I never really got that acting bug, but I always like watching old TV shows and movies
Okay.
since birth, pretty much. what gave you that acting bug or desire to be on a show?
Wow. It was
Excuse me.
how I grew up. You know, the first thing I did, I was not quite 3 years old. And, I really, that wasn't a cognitive decision on my part, and then, that was so big with Jane Wyman and Sterling Hayden. And
Right.
my mom grew up in Texas, and her idol was Jane Wyman. And she thought if she took me on this interview, with over 200 little kids, um, all she wanted was Jane Wyman's autograph. She had not a clue. She didn't have anything. And over all these kids, I got the job. Now, I must have had that, whatever it was
Hmm.
that they needed, the suits, and I did, what they told me to do.
Right.
And I was cute. And so that I fit the whole picture.
Yeah.
Um, so I just kind of grew up. I just grew up doing it.
Yeah.
The only time, and I never had any real acting lessons.
Hmm.
It just was like an osmosis type thing. It just happened, and I enjoyed it. You
Yeah.
know, I now I did not like stage. I did not like that part of acting. Um, Film, televisions, movies, even
Hmm.
actually some live television, but it wasn't like a play. Plays,
Right. I know
it's
the
the
difference.
same thing
Yeah. Yeah.
over, which is great. I mean, oh my God, the people that do it are incredible, and a lot of people can do all of it.
Hmm.
Do stage, do Hollywood. But I think it's just that's how I grew up. I grew up with the Hollywood thing. I didn't grow up in New York, which was stage and film, and then some people came out here, but it was fun.
Hmm.
And so, like, if you're doing something and it's fun and you're making money too, and you're enjoying it, and other people are enjoying or getting pleasure from what you're doing, then go for it.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you're dyslexic. Did that hinder you, or was there no issue with that as far as memorizing
Well,
lines and delivering lines?
I never thought it was an issue, but other people thought it was an issue. As a matter of fact, when I started on Lassie, I was 7 years old, and couldn't read and couldn't really spell. Um, I couldn't, and Life magazine, big Life magazine that
Right.
came out. I don't know if it was once a week or once a month, but
Yeah, it's weekly.
everybody
It was
bought that
weekly then. Yeah. Yeah.
weekly. Everybody
Yeah.
bought Life
Yeah.
magazine. They did a whole expose on me, this little 7-year-old kid that couldn't, that's going to be starring, working with Lassie, for the next 7 years. Can't read or write. He has a mental block.
Oh boy.
Yeah, right. So I had to live with that for a while until they figured out what it was, and they came up with the term dyslexia. And so as a matter of fact, when I was working on Lassie, the producers, the Rathers, Benita Granville and Jack Rather, they sent me once a week to UCLA. They had in their education department there, they had a special section where they were working on kids like me and
Hmm.
trying to, figure out everything. And so I remember going there like once a week for 2 or 3 hours or something like that. Um, so, and yeah, it hindered me in a lot of ways. I think, I can, I spell it phonetically and I flip numbers sometimes. So I just have to be really careful. And
Hmm.
now I ask Siri how to spell it. So, and most
All that
most
work for
of the,
naught.
I know so a lot
Siri,
of
do
times
my
it
work.
turns out okay, but a lot of times it doesn't. So
Right.
it is what it is.
But again, back in those days, did you just memorize scripts, or you didn't have a lot of lines, right? Or how
Oh
did
no, I did. And later on I could. I could read and I can do. I mean, I can read a book now. I can,
Okay,
I can do all that, but mainly it's the spelling is just not, it's
got it.
okay for me,
Okay.
but not for
As
other
someone
people.
who doesn't have that, it's hard for me to
Oh,
fathom,
it's weird. It's real,
I used to
and
be
it's,
like Mr. Spelling Bee and stuff like that.
oh
So it's like,
man, you guys, I never understood you guys, and especially English. I mean,
yeah,
English is such a hard
yeah.
language. But get back to your question, my mother would read me my lines the night before,
Hmm.
and I would memorize them. And it was we would on Lassie, it was we worked 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, 9 months out of the year. That's what I did. And so we did a half-hour show and three and a half days of filming.
Hmm.
And so we would go through about 10 to maybe 15 pages an evening.
Wow.
And Timmy was almost always in it.
Right.
He didn't have any really long, 2-page, of dialogue.
Speech.
But no, but
Okay.
it turned out I really developed a good memory for that.
Hmm. Okay.
And back then it worked really, really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Interesting
dealt,
because
it worked out.
when I was a kid, I did try out some acting and stuff like that, and I did some school plays and stuff. But man, it was difficult for me to learn lines. And I think
Hmm.
nowadays I'd probably do better at it. I memorize things a lot better than I used to, but maybe I just was hung up when I was a kid. I don't
Well,
know.
I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of actors, I mean, what I was it some of the older actors, John Wayner's or uh, Brando or somebody, um, couldn't didn't wouldn't memorize their lines or
Yeah.
couldn't, and like the other actors had to have them written on their faces or something, different places, kind of like cue cards,
Mhm.
back in the day, which we didn't use cue cards at all. The only thing was when Lassie would bark,
Yeah.
and whoever it was, it could be, the parent or a stranger, they knew what Lassie was saying when Lassie barked. Well,
Right.
the only reason they knew that was because it was in the script.
Got it. Yeah.
The dog
But
really didn't.
as a dumb kid, I guess, I used to think, everybody's so great doing this acting. They know all their lines, but I never thought about that people had cue cards or people were fed lines or
Yeah.
people just made it up. You know.
Well, and that
You-
happens too, and it depends. You got to be really up there if you're
yeah.
gonna, do it off the cuff.
Hmm. So I want to talk about a few of the films you did prior to Lassie, and just kind of, I'll say so big since you discussed that.
Don't
Uh,
remember a thing about it.
you don't remember even Jane
That my
Wyman.
first no
That-
my
Okay, that's
first
what I
two,
was kind of
and
curious.
I had a line in So Big. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
She asked how big's my baby, and I said so big. So anyway, no, the first two movies I don't recall. The second movie was Country Girl with
Country
Bing
Girl.
Crosby and Grace Kelly.
Okay.
Don't remember a thing about either one of those.
So
Seen them both.
how
I
old were
know
you?
them.
Yeah.
Well, I
Sorry.
was like, well, not quite 3 in So
Oh,
Big.
okay. All right.
And
Good.
in The Country Girl, I was probably maybe 3.5, maybe 4.
Okay.
The
Okay.
only thing spectacular about that movie was that I was killed. I was run over. I was run. Yeah, Bing Crosby let me loose on the street because he was a photo op,
Right.
and I ran in front of a truck and got run over, which you never saw. You just heard it. But that was the only time that I ever died or was killed or anything. So,
Yeah.
but
But even
those two I don't
scenes.
remember. After that, 3, 4, 5, the different movies I do recall.
Okay. So would the next one be like He Laughed Last, the Blake Edwards film?
That was
Oh,
right in the same time.
okay.
And okay, now actually that one I don't
Okay.
really have a lot of memory. The ones that I do would be All Mine to Give,
Okay.
or The Day They Gave Babies Away. I think now it's
Okay.
called All Mine to Give.
Okay.
Uh, that one with Glennis Johns, I
Okay.
do remember a little on that. Then uh, Back from Eternity with
Hmm.
Rod Steiger and
Yeah.
just Ed Clark and Beulah Bondi. I mean, oh, they had an incredible. And that one, oh boy, I really remember that. I had a birthday, and I remember they gave me a metal Japanese robot, and this
Wow.
was like 54 or something, or 55. And
Yeah,
I'd love to have that today, but who
yeah.
knows what happened to it. But no, that one, but you said you had one that you had a question about.
Well, I was just kind of curious, with some of the actors, but I think you did say in the book on that Back from Eternity that you did remember Anita Ekberg. Is
Oh,
that, yeah?
yeah. You know,
So
I mean,
kudos to
I
you.
was a little kid, and she was this, and my mother's blonde,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
but she was like twice the size of my mother, and beautiful and blonde, and it was just all these other actors. There was no other kids.
Yeah.
And she immediately befriended me, and I was always on her lap, or in her arms. And couple of days after that we started, some of the crew guys came up and said, "Hey, we'll give you $5 to trade places." I didn't know. I had not a clue. I didn't take the money though.
on
I knew a good thing.
for a child back then as an actor, I mean, were you treated similarly from job to job, movie to movie, or was it completely different night and day every time you went on a different shoot?
um I think it was pretty much the same.
Okay.
The big difference is when you have a series,
Hmm.
because that's different.
Right.
It's gonna, or you hope it's gonna be a long-term thing. A movie, you're a couple months, a month, a week. It
Hmm.
depends what your part is and how large it is. Um, but no, you're always treated the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had rules even back then, that, you can't do this, you can't work you 20 hours a day and blah, blah,
Oh
blah.
yeah, well
Yeah.
those rules. Well, not only not no, that's really good you brought that up, because not only were there the child labor laws
Yeah.
that they had to follow,
Hmm.
and the educational laws and all
Hmm.
that. Well, then the studio or the producers, they had their own laws that you had to follow, which could be like, um, say you like to horseback ride.
Hmm.
They could say, no, you can't horseback ride anymore, because that's could be really dangerous, and you could fall off and break your leg, and then that's going to shut production down, blah blah blah. You can't go surfing because that's dangerous. You can't skateboard, or you can't ride a motorcycle. I mean, all these things. And when you think about it, it's really true. I mean, I just, boom, came to mind. One of a ball player was out riding, his ATV somewhere, and flipped it, and you know threw out his shoulder. And I can't play ball, and they have World Series they're going to play.
Right.
So yeah, it really can mess everybody up. So yeah, you got all kinds of rules, and but like every rule, everybody tries to break them or whatever.
Right, right.
I didn't do
Um,
that at all.
during your entire career, I mean, I'm sure you did some stunts, but you probably had a stand-in and things for
Oh yeah,
various things. Yeah.
had stunt. As a matter of fact, Stan Livingston, who introduced Lori and I from My Three Sons, went way, way before. On one of my very first Lassie episodes, I was supposed to be in a pond, and
Not a well.
yeah, a pond, and they didn't want to put me in there because it was dangerous. So they actually, Stan Livingston was my double, and
Yeah.
another kid was my double, and he had some try. He was a champion swimmer.
Mm.
That's why they hired him. But like he said, the water below the water, it was muddy, and
Mm.
they told him to go under the water and then
Mm.
come up, and he went down, and his feet got stuck
Ooh.
in the mud. He finally made it out, but and then now one time, it was very end of the series.
Yeah.
Uh, Lassie, the series, kind of invented the continued next week
Right.
in episodes. And we had done a three-parter, 3 consecutive weeks. It was my favorite of 249
Mhm.
half-hour episodes. It's my favorite.
Mhm.
It's called The Odyssey, but everything we did was black and white.
Mhm.
Uh, at the very end, they decided to do a five-parter in Technicolor.
Mm.
Uh, we were always CBS. CBS was the last of the big three. NBC went color, and following year, ABC went color, and then finally CBS did. So
Right.
anyway, what they did was it was a Technicolor film, a TV series that they were going to put together and release as a movie, which they did.
Right.
There was a scene in there with Lassie and I were stranded, up in the Sierras, and we build a raft. Timmy builds a raft, and we're supposed to go down the stream and get saved. But the raft is supposed to break apart. Lassie and I get thrown into the rapids, and we get separated, and that's part of the story. Well, they couldn't use a stunt person because they had to see my face,
Right.
and they didn't have CGI. There was no way they could. Yeah, and they had the same with Lassie.
Right.
Lassie was a very special looking dog, only one,
Mhm.
and so they used the real Lassie.
Mhm.
Well, not only was that not the best thing, but we couldn't rehearse it.
Mm.
They knew what was going to happen. They had multiple cameras. That was the first, and we started down the rapids, and they had it set up that the raft at a certain point would break apart, and we got thrown into the water. Well, for Lassie, they had three men in wetsuits, two men in wetsuits to
Mhm.
jump in and save Lassie. This was on New Year's Day in the Sierras. The
Mhm.
water, it was, it was the Sonora River. It
Well.
was freezing. And so I had on a wetsuit underneath my clothing,
Mhm.
which was hiking boots, a wool jacket.
Mhm.
Well, that all didn't work when I hit the water. So yeah. So
Wow.
I hit the water, hit a big boulder, it knocked all the air out of me. I was kind of going down. I came up and I'm gasping and doing the whole thing. Well, the director's thinking, oh man, this kid's really gonna get an Emmy for this performance. Well, I was
While
really
you're dying.
I was really, really in trouble. So my stunt double, who was a man,
Uh-huh.
Whitey Hughes, he was a champion swimmer. He saw the issue. Well, when they had a rope, Mark, they had a rope tied across the river that I was supposed, when we finally left the last camera, I was supposed to jump up and grab, and then get to shore. Well, I was out of it. I went right under that rope. I'm just going down the river. So Whitey jumps in, gets us both back, gets me up to the shore, and everything's good. And at the end of the day, the director walked over to Whitey and gave him $100 bill and said, "Thanks." You know,
Wow.
he realized that he saved, the star kid from the series.
Right.
So yeah, I had stunt double some, and so that one worked out really great. But yeah,
Mhm.
you never know. I enjoyed doing my own stunts. I wanted to,
Mhm.
as a 10, 12, 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Hey, it's funny. You see the guys falling off the hill and off the roof and all this, and I wanted to do it. And so they did let me do some stuff, but if it was, any chance you'd get hurt,
Right.
not really.
Now, how many episodes did you do per season?
Um,
Is
34,
Yeah.
36.
Because it seems
Yeah.
like, yeah, when it's a show that has a kid on it, like Dennis the Menace, they shot way more episodes than, say, I don't know, Gilligan's Island or something. Well, even then, it's like, but, a lot of the other shows were like 28, 26, 24, and, it seems like,
And yeah, it's the people think, oh my, because today, what, 10,
yeah,
12
streaming, it's
episodes,
like eight.
and you can, if you're, you can wait and watch them all in one night,
Right,
where back then you had to be there on Sunday, on channel 2 with the family, with your one TV in the house,
right. It's
black and white, and
this
watch
big.
the show. Yeah, and run up and change the channel, kid.
Right.
Yeah, it was a whole different, and we didn't have a clue that, you know, 50, well, more than that now, later, people are still watching
Yeah.
all our shows, all those old shows.
Hmm.
Lassie's still on in over 50 countries. It's on a dozen, cable networks around here, sometimes at 3 in the morning,
Hmm.
with, Gilligan's Island. And you mentioned Gilligan's Island. Um, Hugh Riley, who played my father on the show for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After Lassie, he was offered the part of the professor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, and he turned it down.
Hmm.
He turned it down because number one, he wanted to spend more time with his young kids. Makes
Hmm.
sense because
Hmm.
it is like I said, I work 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. Um, and the other thing was he said he thought it was silly.
Yeah.
Well, it was.
Yeah. Well, even
It's
people who
silly.
took it, Tina
Yeah.
Louise and Natalie Schaefer, they didn't want to do it either. But they took it. They said, "Oh, it's a nice trip to
It
Hawaii,"
and
and
they yeah, and they probably thought oh, it'll never sell. We'll do the
yeah,
pilot and it'll never sell. Yeah, exactly. But boy, were they wrong.
yeah.
And
But
I
I
think
love that show too.
they're
So hey,
together.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry you had to suffer for my entertainment value, but hey. Um, Now, Lassie was obviously already established. I mean, the basic history, anybody can look it up. It was a film first. It had Elizabeth Taylor, and then there was a later one that
Roddy
had
McDowell.
Roddy McDowell, and then it became the TV series. And Tommy Reddick was the first star with it, right? Yeah.
Right. Jeff Miller.
Now, the reason why they switched to you, he was getting like long in the tooth, as it were, and they wanted a younger kid, or he was just tired of doing it.
Tommy wanted out.
Okay. All right.
He was moving on. He was 17 years old.
Yeah.
They started when he was 14, and they realized, okay, let's get a little kid in there, and he'll grow up on the show.
Mhm.
So that was, how they got me.
Yeah.
Um, and the way I was picked for that part, I was doing a movie for RKO in Japan, 1956. It
Hmm.
was one of the first American movies filmed after the war,
Hmm.
11 years after we, destroyed that place. Last movie RKO was making,
Hmm.
before Howard Hughes was selling to Desi and Lucy.
Right.
He still owned TWA, Trans World Airlines. So we took the crew, all the equipment, the cast, and everybody, and we took a big Constellation and flew. It took over a day. We
Mm.
had 3 stops. We stopped in Hawaii, Guam, Wake, and then landed in Tokyo. And I was 6 years old. And oh man, I remember a lot about that.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was so much fun. Spent a little over 3 months there. Well, while I was there, they were looking for a kid to be the Timmy on Lassie. Couldn't find the kid, evidently, and so the story I have is the woman's um, whose husband was uh, doing a movie. Well, okay, so they were looking for the kid. They couldn't find the kid, and so she was having lunch with the wife that the husband was doing our movie in Japan. She said,
Hmm.
"Oh, it sounds like we have the kid you're looking for. He's in Japan." So when I got back from Japan, and they said seen some of the dailies, so they said, "Yeah, okay, that's the kid we want." They looked at some of the old movies. That's Timmy. So I didn't have to audition for the part.
Hmm.
What I did have to do was audition with Lassie to see how
Oh,
we
yeah.
got along. Yeah. If the dog didn't like me, it wouldn't work. And I grew up around at the time, we lived in Pomona, which is about 60 miles east of LA.
Mhm.
And my sister had a horse, I had a pony, we had a goat, dogs and cats and pigeons. We had all kinds of stuff. So I was very familiar with it.
Mhm.
So, but they wanted to make sure that Lassie and I got along. So I went and lived for a long weekend, 3 days,
Mhm.
with Red Weatherwax on his
Mhm.
ranch, and to see how Lassie and I got along.
Now,
And
which
so back
which
and
Lassie was it? Lassie Junior, that one,
this
or
was this was the old man, which would
oh,
be
Pal?
Pal's
Oh,
son.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's Pal's son.
okay,
Pal only did the movies.
okay.
Then his son took, and throw this in them. A few years ago, I found this out, and it's true. I have copies. There
Uh-huh.
was a Lassie radio show,
Yes,
like
I've heard that.
Green
Yeah.
Hornet. Yeah, I mean, I never knew about that,
Yeah.
and I was at
No,
an old
Jack
time
rather knew
radio.
how to market his characters.
Oh man, isn't that something? So
Yeah.
if the movies, then the radio show, and then the TV show.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, that was the old man,
Yeah.
and we got along great. He was a
Hmm.
great dog.
Hmm.
And I ended up working with him for 1 year,
Okay.
and then worked with a couple other
And then
Lassies.
you said that you worked with Baby and it was for 5 years and it was your favorite.
Baby was, yeah, my
Yeah.
last from when I was 9 to 14. Same dog. We grew up together. I learned so much from him, and he was just, I loved that dog, and he loved me. And I mean, we did it. We ate together, we slept together, we played together, we did everything together.
Yeah.
And even on weekends, I sometimes would go home with Rudd and spend the weekend at his ranch, out in the valley. It was good for me to get away from LA. He had a pond and stuff. I could fish and whatever and play
Mhm.
with the dogs. It
Wow.
was a great bonding thing, but I loved it. Yeah,
Mhm.
baby was
And
my dog.
then the
But I
third
could,
one you mentioned
yeah.
is Spook. Spook
Oh,
was that the
Spook was okay. Spook was baby's father.
got it.
He,
Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he was in between the old man and baby.
Got it.
He
Okay.
wasn't working out. He just didn't have it. And, hey, you never know, right?
Yeah.
Rudd would breed, he'd have 50 puppies before he got one that, was a male. It had to be a male, had to have the markings, and then hopefully it's, going to turn out good. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so Spook didn't work so long. We played with him for about a year and a half,
Hmm.
and then baby took over because he was really young, baby.
And it's basically a good dog would be one that takes direction well and can be endearing and think on its
And
feet as it were
all
as
the
a dog.
stuff that
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened to Spook. He was okay, but we had a scene. It was June Lockhart, myself, and Lassie,
Yeah.
and it was set up where the camera was moving towards us on a dolly. Well, people don't realize back then the equipment was very big and very heavy, and
Hmm.
so two men on this dolly with the camera probably weighed, you know, 2,500 pounds or something, and then a man controlling it. Well, he lost control of the dolly. It came towards us, came off its tracks, knocked over a light, which almost hit the dog. Nobody got hit or hurt,
Hmm.
almost hit him and really spooked him.
Hmm.
So anytime we were set up in a scene that was similar to that, he'd start shaking.
Hmm.
And so
Wow.
yeah, it just happened. It was
Hmm.
unfortunate. It wasn't planned.
Hmm. Now, when you got Lassie at that time, were you looking for a series or is this just another
Nope,
job?
nope,
Okay.
nope. Not even thinking about it.
Okay.
Everything just kind of happened.
Hmm.
And I'm a real strong believer of being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And
Now,
if
were
you're
you aware
there,
of the series with Tommy
oh yeah,
already? Or
oh
yeah.
yeah. I
Okay.
I
Okay.
watched it as a kid.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
really young. I
Yeah.
was 7 years old, 6 years old, but I
Yeah.
remember Lassie. Yeah,
Okay.
and but never thought I'd be there.
Yeah.
That was the great part. And Tommy, he was 10 years my senior.
Right.
So when we did work together for a half a season,
Right.
but we didn't have any kind of bonding because 10 years is a big difference, and I'm a
Yeah.
little kid and he's 17, right? He's
Yeah.
got his sights are somewhere else.
Well, especially if he wanted to move on from the series anyway.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah. But later on, after
Yeah.
like my college years and stuff, we hooked up again,
Yeah.
and we became pretty close in
Yeah.
a different way, a
Right.
distance. And so, but the funny thing was, I had this deal with him. Every time we got together, whether it be on the phone or in person, the last thing I'd do is I'd shake, because if I was in person, I'd shake his hand, or over the phone, I'd say, "Thanks for the dog, Jeff,"
Uh,
because he gave me Lassie. That's how he left the series. So I
right.
always I always I always thanked him, and he was a great guy. He passed away really, really
Yeah.
young. Very sad.
Yeah.
Very smart guy.
Yeah.
Really smart guy.
Well, he
Had
got
a
into computers and stuff, right?
compute.
Yeah.
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 Oh
Yeah.
yeah. He was.
Yeah.
Bill Gates had just contacted him about 3 weeks before he had his heart attack, and said he wanted him to come up to Washington and be part of his inner circle.
Wow.
So, yeah, you got to be pretty smart in computers. I can barely use my phone. And look what we're doing. Wow, this is great.
Yeah, hey, technology works
Yeah,
here.
it
All
works. No,
right.
I love it. Yeah,
Actually, I
I
love
love
it
it.
that we can do these pretty
Oh
easy.
yeah,
Like the
yeah.
old
It's
days,
a
you had to fly to LA and visit you and blah blah blah, which I can
yeah.
do, but it's easier to do it this way.
You got
Now,
it.
once you got Lassie, I mean, the appearances were like endless. I'll mention a few, and if you want to stop me and say, I'll talk about that one. Like the
Okay.
Jack Benny show, the Tennessee Ernie Ford show, um, and you were on numerous parades. You're like in
Oh yeah.
every
No,
parade under the sun with
oh
the.
God. Well, we Lassie was the Grand Marshal of the Grand Marshal, I believe. Well, twice in the Rose Parade.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's, like the biggest parade on the West Coast. And the parades were great. We got to, do some very little teeny small town parades too. The
Yeah.
big ones, the little ones. Those were always fun. And being guests, the Jack Benny show, that was a real quick. The show is actually great. It's like he's would always start his show by walking out on stage in front of the
Right. Okay.
screen,
Great. Yeah.
like in a big theater, and he's doing his business, and Lassie comes running behind him across the stage, and he's like, what's this? And then he gets back into his thing. Now here comes Timmy trying to get his dog,
Yeah.
and he grabs, starts talking to me, and then he's trying to get me to join his fan club for 25 cents. And I'm saying, well, and then Lassie comes out and saves me, because that's it. But
I
no,
have
that
seen that before.
and the
It's very fun.
Tennessee Ernie Ford show, I think I did that a couple times.
Yeah.
Really nice, warm. I don't think I worked with anybody that was
Well, you
didn't.
worked with all these people that I loved, yeah, as a kid. I loved Jack Benny as a kid, and I was only 7 years old when he died, and I was like so sad. I was like, oh, I like him.
Oh
Tennessee Ernie
man.
Ford. I had a record that was the Pea
Oh yeah.
Pickers story is how the Jolly Green Giant got his ho ho ho. And it's just a little record I had, and I fell in love with him. And then I'd see like old episodes of I Love Lucy, and then his own
Mhm.
show and stuff like that. I go, wow, I love all
Yeah.
these guys, and you worked with all of them, So there
Well,
you
and
go.
it's funny, I don't. There's a new generation out there that the generation of that we were in a unique time
Yeah,
because television was really new.
yeah,
A lot of people didn't have TVs
yeah,
when we were on. Things changed, and the stories, uh, whether it's comedy or a western or a drama,
mhm,
um, they had a lot of substance to them.
mhm,
Where today, I think it's a lot of flash.
mhm,
It's what people want, but it shows the quality that all of these shows had, that they're still on and
yeah,
people are still watching them, and they're creating little networks that just show those shows.
mhm.
um Unfortunately, none of us get anything
Oh
for
no,
that.
yeah,
But that's okay, that's the way it goes. There's other ways and other things. So
right,
and it goes on. It's like during COVID, we get a phone call. Lori gets a call, for these guys are doing a science fiction movie. Oh, I've never done a science fiction. And so it turned out I was a voice of a robot in this science. I'm Spark the robot. You remember you had Cast Away with Tom Hanks,
yeah,
and he had his friend Wilson.
yeah, the ball,
That's
yeah,
kind of like
volleyball.
Spark. He floats. He's around,
Oh,
kind of
okay,
along with the robot. And so wow, I never got to do that, but if the phone rings and things happen, June
mm,
Lockhart, okay, worked with June for 6 years.
yeah,
When she left the farm, she got lost in space, and then came back to reality on Petticoat
yeah,
Junction and a million other things. And a
yes,
great lady who is still with us
yes,
at 98 years old,
hmm,
told me one thing when I was really little. I was kind of precocious when she got, she wasn't my first mom. My first mom on Lassie was Cloris Leachman,
yeah,
and she did not want that part. She
yeah. I've
said, "I'm
heard
not
that
baking
before.
cookies, you guys." And so they replaced her with June Lockhart, and
Yeah.
the husband John Shepard with Hugh Riley.
Mhm.
Um, so I was like kicking her under the table, doing something, and she took me aside. And June was, I think back then, she was like maybe her late 20s or something. She wasn't that old. So,
Yeah.
but she sits me down and she goes, "Now listen, young man, we're going to be working together for 6 years, and you're a professional and I'm a professional. And so you act like a professional and play a nice little boy and stop this stuff. And
Mhm.
someday you'll be old like me." And you'll play. I know, but when you're a
Yeah,
yo-yo
yeah,
kid
yeah,
there, she's mommy, she's old.
yeah,
Um, she said someday you'll be playing an old person. And yeah, it's what happens.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Um,
like I said, I never knew, I never saw it coming.
I had the pleasure of meeting both of them, both Cloris and June, at various
All
events over
right.
the years and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And I could
totally different
see,
people.
I could see why Cloris wouldn't enjoy it. I mean,
No,
she was
Dolores,
more in her element with like we were watching a revival of Young Frankenstein. She was more in her
oh,
element of that. She was more in her element in Mary Tyler Moore's show. So I get it. It's
oh
like,
yeah.
with June, she was just, you know, even it was like 20 years ago, I guess, but it was at the Bammy Awards, and
Wow, far out.
she had to introduce Third Eye Blind, and she
Oh, I
asked
love
me,
it.
she goes, "Who's Third Eye Blind?" And I had to explain who it was, because yeah, it's these young whippersnapper groups, whatever, it's like, even she was like
So,
more into
oh,
like,
that is so neat
Beatles
that
and stuff, so
that is so neat that you got to participate in that. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Because
and
I'm, living about an hour from San Francisco up north and
yeah.
never did go to there because that's when I was going to college, I guess. But do you remember what year or
Geez,
years?
it was before 2005. I probably did I used to hang around with this friend named Dane Andrew that we used to do video shoots and celebrity interviews and stuff. Um, and we would get into various events. And the Bammies, we did a few years in a row. One time it
Hmm.
was in Oakland, one time, and that the year I met June was in San Francisco. It's got to be late 90s, like 98, 99, something around
Okay.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I wish I had gone to one because I know she loved that stuff.
yeah.
She loved it.
And yeah, she was very down to earth, but she was kind of blunt,
Oh yes. Oh yes.
it's like, and she's a little salty in her tongue too, but it's like, because hey, I'm not I'm not Timmy's
Listen,
mom right now. I can
that's
say anything
right.
I
No,
want, but
no, and no, listen, June would, I mean, come on, she's amazing woman, just amazing,
yeah.
and God bless her.
Yeah. And my friend Dane only knew her from Lost in Space. And I go, "Come on, you never watched
Yeah.
Lassie?" And he goes, "No, not really." And I was like,
Wow.
Now, granted, I only saw Lassie in reruns, but still, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I haven't said all this. It's like, fell in love with Collie Dog too. I wish I was you. I had this little Whitman book that had your photo on the cover. I'm sure you've seen it, a little hardback, and it was in my bookshelf for years. It's like, oh, and everything like that. Finally got a dog. My mom was terrified of dogs, so we never had one when I was a kid.
Okay.
She bought me a stuffed collie dog, and it's like, well, not the same thing. And like, yeah, I see behind you, you have like a little
Oh,
statuette of
stuff.
Lassie,
Yeah.
things like that. I'd have stuff like that, but never a real dog until now. Dog's in the other room. It's not a collie,
Okay.
it's a terrier, but it's small, but
Cool.
still, it's nice to finally
Love,
have a
love,
dog.
love the dog. Love the dog.
Um, anyway, at the so you've done the show for 7 years. Did you have the same Tommy Reddig experience, saying I gotta get out of here, and or was it just kind of
Yeah.
winding down anyway? Or
No, the show was going on.
yeah,
When I initially signed with them, it was a 7-year contract
hmm,
with a 3-year option.
I see.
And the option was ours. I mean, I could continue or not. And so my parents, they didn't care.
Yeah,
And I said, no, I said, I'm tired of being okay. Look, I'm 14 years old. I'm starting to, go through puberty. I'm looking at the girls and stuff. But everybody thinks of me as little Timmy with Lassie. I wanted to get out of that image. So
yeah,
I told my parents, I said, no, I don't want to go on for 3 more years. And they said, great. Well, the owner he owned Sergeant Preston, The
Right.
Lone Ranger, and Lassie, those
Right.
three TV series. Jack Rather,
Hmm.
well, along with his wife Benita Granville, she was our executive producer. Well, he also owned Chris Craft boats,
Ah,
and so plus a lot of other things. So he
yeah.
offered one of the perks. They said one of my things was I didn't have enough time off in the summer, which I didn't because we worked 9 months. The
Yeah.
10th month was all publicity stuff with me and Lassie, and then the 2 months I was off, I was doing all kinds of other stuff. So I wanted some time. They said, okay, we'll give you time. I don't, and I really didn't care. But then he offered me a big boat. Like, what is a 14-year-old gonna do with a, 35-foot boat? I mean, seriously, it's not gonna work. So, so I quit. I said no, and I told my parents, but I still wanted to act. I still wanted to do stuff. Right after Lassie, I did a couple of Mr. Eds,
Yeah.
which was great. Arthur Lubin, the director, was the same director of the movie I did in Japan. So
Okay.
Escapade in Japan
Right.
in 1956, and so I did a couple of those, which was great. And um, but sorry, Ed doesn't really talk. That's it's
That was
it's the trainer. He does a little thing with him, but
yeah.
that was but that was fun. And then I did the first movie, which was a total change from Timmy, was um, the one for uh, This Property is Condemned with Robert Redford and Natalie Wood for Paramount.
Hmm.
And it was a dark Tennessee Williams play but Mary Badham played Natalie Wood's younger sister, and she was a scout in To Kill a Mockingbird. And so we were really the only two kids. Uh, it was a lot of fun. We filmed it down in Mississippi and Louisiana. Uh, and then I did a movie that nobody has ever seen.
I know you
Um,
mentioned this. I think
yeah, yeah. It's called
what's
Secret of the Sacred Forest. I'm looking up here on the wall. There's a big poster of it.
and even I haven't heard of it. I mean, most
No,
of the movies you
no,
mentioned
it
I've seen
starred
or heard of at least,
Gary Merrill.
Yeah.
Gary Merrill, the actor. It was his final movie.
Yeah.
We filmed it in the Philippines. We spent about over 3 months there. Loved it. This was 1956.
Uh-huh.
No, 57. Loved it. Had a great time. But terrible movie. And then I come back to the States and I get a Disney movie with Kurt Russell. Hey, now,
Yay.
yeah,
Now
right.
I love this movie. I know,
Oh yeah, computer wore tennis shoes.
yes.
So yeah, it was really a lot of fun. I'd never worked with Disney. Um, and all the crew, all the fun, everybody, Cesar
Mhm.
Romero. I mean, they had everybody. It was great. Uh, so Kurt had his birthday while we were filming, and I had mine. We're only a few days apart.
Mhm.
We're both Pisces,
Mhm.
and we're having lunch, and I'm talking to Kurt, and he's talking about baseball. He's really into ball.
Mhm.
And I go, Kurt, I said I've been working 15 years. It's my 18th birthday. I think I should maybe take a break. And Kurt says, yeah, I think you should take a break. Well, Mark, it was kind of a mistake. I mean, it wasn't, but it was. I mean, it was okay. So I said, yeah, you're right. And so I told my parents, I said, nah, I'm out. And they said, okay, well, now you're graduated from high school. So now you go to college. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna do. Well, unbeknownst to me, my character Bradley in computer was gonna be in two more movies with Kurt.
Right.
Nope, didn't do it. So
Okay.
that's when if I had known, I
Yeah.
probably would have. I would no, I know I would. I would have stayed and done those two more movies. It
Yeah.
would just been
Because I love
another
those three
another
movies. I know
year.
people have written about it and stuff like that. And I always jokingly, but I'm not really that jokingly, is when people write, "What's your favorite movie trilogy?" And people will usually put Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Indiana
Yeah,
Jones, Rocky, whatever. And I always put uh the Dexter Riley films, and then they go, "Oh yeah, those are great." It's like because it's like it had some stupid gimmick, but I
Oh
think
yeah,
what
it
made it
was
work
typical.
is just the cast. It was
It's
like
typical Disney,
yeah.
movie
I mean, I'm
that
glad they
of that
stopped at
genre.
three. I'm
Of
glad they
yeah,
stopped at three because, Joe Flynn had died, unfortunately. And, Kurt Russell, he was obviously having his own growing pains, like, I gotta get out of here,
yeah.
And
Hey, listen, we all go through it, we all do it, and
yeah,
we all have to move on and do different things,
yeah.
So I take off. I end up well, I started to go to school down in Southern Cal, but my a girlfriend from high school was going to school up north. And
Mhm,
so I would travel on a weekend and visit. And oh, this is great. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer next semester,
mhm.
And so, and back then they had PSA Airlines had was called the Midnight Express. You could fly for $10 from Los
Wow.
Angeles to San Francisco, and $20 round trip.
Yeah.
It's great. Did that, but so I ended up transferring up here. Uh, we broke up. I continued with school and said I like it, and I stayed.
Mhm.
And then get a phone call from a friend in LA. This is like 97, 98. And he says, "Hey, they're going to be doing a new Lassie series." I said, "Oh, you're kidding. I haven't heard about that." And he goes, "Yeah, this producer, Al Burton over at Universal is talking about it." So I call up Al Burton and say, "Hey, Al,
Mhm.
Jon Provost here, from the original Lassie series. I hear you're doing a new show." He goes, "Jon Provost." He goes, "I didn't even know you were still around." Wait, I said,
Thanks.
"Yes." He goes, "Well, I just want to tell you this right now. I'm not going to use anybody from the old series." I said, "Okay, that's not a problem. What about behind the scenes? What about as a consultant or writing or something?" And he goes, "Oh, okay, that sounds good. Why don't you come? We'll have lunch."
Mhm.
So I drive down to LA. We have lunch, a long lunch at Universal. And at the end, he goes, "You know something? I think you can be on screen." He goes, "But you're not Timmy."
Mm.
I go, "Okay, yeah, this ain't gonna work." So anyway, I meet everybody else, Christopher Stone and um, you know, D Stone, D Wallace, and
Mhm.
the kids, and we all hit it off. And I was the uncle, but I wasn't really Timmy. And then I was Timmy, but I was adopted, so my name's not Timmy, it's Steve. Yeah, it just kind of went different places, but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Got to work with some great people. He did
yeah.
um Alberton did decide to use people from the old show. So Tommy Reddick did an episode, June
Yeah.
Lockhart,
Uh-huh.
Roddy McDowell, who I'd never met. What a great guy, from the original series. I mean, the original movie, Lassie
Right.
Come Home. And Margaret O'Brien,
Mhm.
from It's a Wonderful Life and other movies and stuff, I believe. And so, oh, it was great. And then now I had a recurring role, so I wasn't in every episode.
Uh-huh.
So one of the episodes that I didn't get to be in, they had Leonardo DiCaprio, Leo, first thing,
Yeah.
as and he must have been like, 12 years old maybe or something,
Mhm.
10 or something. I don't know. Because I'm just trying to think of the other kids on the show. But that was crazy. And we did that for 2 years. And I
Yeah.
got to work with Bob Weatherwax, Rudd's son, because
Mhm.
Rudd has passed. And so Bob continued on with the line of Lassies. And
Mhm.
to this day, I believe his daughter now has like the 12th, 13th generation
Mm. Wow.
original descendant from the real Lassie, from
Wow.
Al. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
he's just been, a family dog.
Yeah. Until I was reading your book, I had seen that newer Lassie show and I'd totally forgotten about it because they don't show it very often. Do they show it now, to your knowledge? I mean,
No, it's because we only did 2 seasons.
okay.
it's not enough
Yeah.
for them to syndicate, and we
Uh,
didn't do 36 episodes a season.
oh,
I think we did like
yeah.
12
Because I'd like to see him again,
more.
maybe.
But
Yeah, seek him out.
you
But
know, might you could possibly find episodes on YouTube.
probably, yeah.
Yeah, if
Now,
anybody.
couple things about after you left the original Lassie. Okay, so I know the show continued because I remember seeing new episodes when I was a kid with a forest ranger, and actually those kind of bugged me as a kid because I go, "Where's Timmy?
Why?
Where's
Why?
what?"
No, the show, and I don't know, who decided to change or what the real reasons were, but
Uh,
no, the show's about a kid and a dog.
yeah,
Can be a girl and it didn't have to be a boy,
right.
but a kid and it could be in the city.
Yeah.
That would work. Could be some, even years ago. Oh gosh, 20 years ago, June and I were talking about doing a remake of Lassie where she's on the farm. Grandma's been on the farm.
Mhm.
Timmy left years ago, went to the big city, became a big lawyer, a big doctor, or something.
Yeah.
And now he wants to bring his kids back to the farm,
Yeah.
back to grandma. And we're thinking, oh man, this sounds like a really good. Nobody, they said, nobody will watch it. Nobody will buy it. Everywhere we took that. Nope,
Oh,
nope,
weird.
there's not a market for it.
Uh,
Now, if I'd been a serial murderer or something, or a puppy mill breeder,
no.
yeah, they probably would have taken it. So who knows?
Um, Here's an off the wall question, but it is around that same time. So you left the Lassie series, but in the book, and I didn't experience this firsthand, but I've seen a lot of these magazines around. You suddenly became like a teen idol, but you weren't really a singer, you weren't really a musician, you really didn't have any particular TV show at that point. I mean, why did you become this teen idol? And you hung out with like Davy Jones and stuff like that. It said, and,
Oh yeah,
Ann Moses, and who wrote that, and Sal Mineo you mentioned, and things like that.
yeah.
So what were those years like, and why were you considered a teen idol if you really weren't on
You
anything?
know, they just it all started, when you turn 16, 17 years old, and it because everybody knew Timmy, so
Yeah.
it was good. And why? Who knows? Like you said, I didn't really do that. I had an audition though in the Capitol Record Building, the in Hollywood,
Mhm.
um, because to see for a sing thing to cut an album.
Mhm.
No, I that's not me. And
Yeah.
the instrument thing, I tried at Disney. They were looking for a band.
Mm.
Um, and so me and my two buddies that I kind of grew up with, Ron and Mike, who the parents weren't in the business, and Mike played the drums, Ron played the guitar, and I thought I played the bass,
Mhm.
the electric bass. And so we put a little band together and went to Disney for an audition and like got booed out of the place. Um, who knows why? And but yeah, like um at that time too, I was starting to go to the Sunset Strip, and
Okay.
go and because of my notoriety, I was allowed to go to clubs where they maybe had an 18 limit or a 21 limit, and I
Mhm.
wasn't that age, but you're John, yeah, okay, you can come.
Mhm.
And not, if it was 21, there was no way that alcohol would be. Anyway, that wasn't the big thing anyway. So, um, but the teen idol thing, oh yeah, all the Tiger Beat, teen magazine, the different ones, dozens and dozens, and even covers.
Yeah.
Who knows? And like you said, I wasn't really doing anything then, except
Yeah.
well, the computer wore tennis shoes. That was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the big thing
I
that
guess you
every
had to
and
just do something
this
occasionally, and
property
that
is
propelled
condemned.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
whatever, but no, it's like even okay, we were talking about my friend Jay North, or
Yeah.
Jay did an album.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know,
I
I mean, it's like, and he goes, I don't even want to
and I
remember.
had to look up to see because it seemed like everybody did an album. Like I said,
No,
surely
they
John did an
they
album. And it's
tried
like,
with
no.
me. They
Did you even do a
tried. I
single
mean,
or anything?
I
No.
made it to the sixth floor of Capitol Records, but nothing happened. Hey,
Because
you can't do it all.
I mean, if Leonard Nimoy can have albums, he certainly could have
I
something.
mean, oh my God, um, yeah, it's just
Anyway. Oh boy. Let's see. Now when you went to Sonoma, well, there's two things that you talk about in the book that you turned 21, so you got all the trust money because the child labor rules and everything.
right.
You didn't pay you the full amount until you're a certain age, and certainly your family wasn't supposed to abscond with it, like Jackie Coogan, which is why we have the Jackie Coogan
The
law and
Coogan
all that stuff.
Law,
Yeah.
sure.
Um, Now, did you just go nutso and just spend it all, or what?
Well,
Because you have a little shady period there, and if you want to talk about it, you can. You won't. I mean, it's
they're,
in the book, but
they're for one thing, my father, Depression era, was super conservative,
Mhm.
more conservative than I wish he had been,
Yeah.
you know. And we really at one point I was in like a 62-63% tax range
Mm.
when they used to, it used to be crazy like that. Even though you weren't making that much money, it was weird
Yeah.
how they did it. Um, but I didn't really go crazy. I had left LA because for one reason, like I really spent a lot of time going to the clubs and stuff on, in like,
Mhm.
67, 68, when it was just really good.
Yeah. I was gonna say you
It
went at the
wasn't,
right
it
time.
wasn't bad, that hadn't happened. And then late 68, 69, the bikers came in, unfortunately. And then, not that all bikers are bad, but the drugs, the heavy stuff started
Yeah.
coming in, and it just got really dark.
Mhm.
And I saw it all coming down, and I go, this guy grew up here. I didn't, and so that was another reason that I left.
Mhm.
But that was before, I turned 21.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went out, I bought the car, stuff like that. But I didn't go real crazy.
Okay.
Um, and just I think I'm more the conservative part of my father
Yeah.
kind of stuck with me,
Yeah.
like be frugal.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't
Uh,
mean conservative in the other way. So.
Now, you mentioned a number of child actors that didn't make it, because of various reasons, like Rusty Hamer and Dana Plato and, you know, Trent Lehman and people like that that had young, early
And
deaths and stuff like that. How did you kind of escape all that, or did you have to go into therapy like everybody else and kind of
no,
work?
I saw it,
Yeah,
and like I mentioned earlier, I had two good friends growing up. And when I
yeah,
say growing up, it was like from, 10 to 20. Okay,
mhm,
that's a good age to grow up and know somebody.
yeah,
And unfortunately, like Mike, my friend Mike, who I said played the drums,
mhm,
um, he just went down the rabbit's hole.
yeah,
And I was living up here, and I remember coming down and visiting him, and just when he opened the door, my heart just boom hit the floor because
mm,
his eyes were gone. He was dead,
mm,
And then he didn't. He was. And the next time there was no answer.
mm,
Um, but I could see how all that was happening.
mhm,
I mean, things at the parties were getting really just outrageous and stuff.
yeah,
And it was like, no, that's just that. I
mhm,
grew up on a farm. Give me a break.
yeah,
So, so anyway, no, yeah, sure, there were bumps in the road.
yeah,
There always are.
right,
Um, and that's, part of that, those bumps are in that,
yeah,
the added portion to my autobiography, and I'm still
right,
here. Um, and who knows? There's more to come. But I mean, but just Matthew Perry. I mean, good Lord,
yeah,
people
yeah,
struggle. I
yeah,
mean, struggle. We all struggle.
right,
And and it doesn't matter what it is, where that struggle is,
yeah,
because it's just we have to learn from that, and grow
yeah,
and hopefully with help or without or however we can do it, get over that,
yeah.
So.
Well, I'm glad there's people like your friend Paul Peterson who does a lot of
Yeah.
activism work on that to kind of help people
Yeah. And,
along if people are
it's
in
like,
crises.
you mentioned Jay and just others, a lot of people in the Coogan law mainly,
Yeah.
they're, a lot of, and I saw it as a kid growing up
Yeah.
where this kid all of a sudden would get a job
Hmm.
and now he's making more money than dad's making. So dad goes, I'm going to quit my job and I'll be his manager.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, the kid that's working ends up with nothing or
Right.
very little.
Right.
Um, thank God my parents were like that. Dad supported the family. That was very, very
It's
important for
good.
him. Now, he did have me do one thing. Um, I bought both my brother and sister who are older than I. My brother's he's passed, he was 6 years older. My sister is 4 years older. I bought them each their first car.
Mm.
Now, when they were 16,
Hmm.
okay, so now I'm 10 years old. I'm buying my brother his first car, which he
Wow.
got to pick out whatever he wanted.
Mm.
And then, my sister 2 years later, now I'm 12, I'm buying her first car when she's 16. Now, Mark, are you sitting down? I hope you are, and
Yes.
everybody else, because now, John, me, I turned 16. I can't have a car.
Wow. Aw.
I have to wait till I'm 18 before I can get a car,
Hmm.
buy my own car. But here's what my parents let me do.
Mm.
They let me buy a motorcycle when I was 16 instead of a car.
Okay.
Go
Not bad.
figure. Go. I mean, I still don't get that. I
Hmm.
don't know where they were. And my parents weren't drinkers, so it wasn't because of, but they just nope, you don't get a car till you're 18, but you can get a motorcycle.
Interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, the
I
logic.
don't think my
uh,
parents would have done that. They would
I
have
don't,
said, "Get
and
the
the other
car."
side of it, it's like my father who designed airplanes, right? My
Yeah.
mother was made him quit flying. I mean, he designs them, right? For the military and everybody, yet he had a plane. She made him quit flying because it was too dangerous. I mean, wait, I don't, mom, no, it's not too dangerous. And then all we ever did was just fly all over the world,
Hmm.
making movies and making appearances. So who knows?
So that kind of brings us to today. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you've done, and but I guess nowadays you do like animal activism and then all these different shows,
I've been a
correct?
big,
The
big, big
meaning
support.
personal appearances. That's what I mean.
Yeah, well, I've
Yeah.
been a big, big supporter my entire life, my entire, adult life.
Hmm.
Um, Supporting no-kill shelters, supporting service dog organizations, things like that. And yeah, we are entering a new place here. Um, we're just launching a new business.
Hmm.
It's under provost.net and it's for dogs. It's called Spray Mix and Go. It's a Yeah, because it's
Alrighty.
really easy to use. And it's a CBD product that works for dogs to help them calm down if you're going to the vet or you're going to grooming or anxiety separation. Um, One thing too, we've always tested our things that we're going to use on the animals. Well,
Right.
this CBD thing has been tested on humans, not on animals,
Wow.
and it works for joint pain, for arthritic things like that.
Mhm.
But what makes ours more unique is that it's in a spray. It's not in a tincture form, so you don't have to get a dropper out and one drop, two drops. Each spray is a measured dose, and it's not habit forming. It doesn't sedate your dog because what you get from the vet, is drugs, the same kind of drugs we take,
Mhm.
and basically they're just sedating your dog.
Mhm.
This doesn't do it. This does it in a natural way, and plus those drugs, can kill your dog.
Mhm.
This is not habit forming, non-addictive, and completely non-psychoactive. So it does nothing to his head at all. It just helps calm them down. And like I said, it's called Spray Mix and Go, and you can go to jonprovost.com or and my dog just came here. He's giving me some love. And this is our rescue.
Oh,
This we've had him. This is Casper. We've had
oh,
Casper for 4 months. He's 12 years old and he has no teeth.
oh,
And
he
he
has a ton.
he really suffers from anxiety separation.
Oh,
So on his food, in the when you're getting ready to leave, you just spray it on his food, mix it around, and go, and everybody's happy. So
interesting.
that's what we're up to now.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, and yeah, it's great. And people just go to the website, either for the product, which is just Provost, the name, PROVOST.net, or
Okay,
jonprovost.com and find out information there.
very cool. Now, we'll plug the book one more time. I'll hold it up since I have it. It's Timmy's in the Well, the Jon Provost story by you and
Which I
Lori
never
Jacobson.
did fall in a well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You didn't even know that that never happened when you started writing the book.
I didn't. And I said we did 249 half-hour episodes.
Yeah,
My mom saved every script. So I I really didn't know if I'd fallen in a well. I'd
yeah.
been in quicksand, I'd fallen in mine shafts, off cliffs, river, you name it.
Mhm.
And I thought maybe so. The first page of every script was a one-page synopsis of the whole
Mhm.
story. Read everyone, did find the story that maybe two bad guys fell in an old abandoned mine, excuse me, that had on our property, and of course Lassie saved them. But never happened to Timmy. We think maybe um, June or somebody on the set came up with it. June doesn't remember. Nope, but everybody knows it and
I,
everybody says it. I mean,
yeah.
Colbert the other night even made mention. He goes, "Oh, Timmy must be in the well." Or,
I'm always wondering if it was something that was said like on The Simpsons or on Beavis and Butthead or something, because there is a Beavis and Butthead
but
where he gets
but it
stuck
was
in a pipe,
before that.
you
It
know?
was
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It
So,
comes up everywhere,
and
but it was
I
definitely
certainly
before.
am not sure because, I didn't memorize the shows. I just remember various things. And you did get in
Yeah.
trouble quite a few times.
Oh,
And so
well, if
why
that
not?
listen,
You
if Mark, if it hadn't been for Lassie, the kid never would have made it, you know. And that's another thing. Why did they, put Lassie with a forest ranger? And then
Uh,
they eventually dropped the forest ranger,
yeah,
and it was just Lassie
I
by
remember that too.
herself.
Yeah. That's what I
And
saw first run.
but did
And
you know that Lassie was at one point was the second longest running series,
yeah,
behind Bonanza,
yeah.
was the longest,
And
than Lassie, but now it's
then they made a cartoon series and
a cart
which I
and
watched.
cartoons. DreamWorks owns what's called the Lassie Library, which
Yeah.
is everything.
Mhm.
DreamWorks owns that now, so maybe Spielberg, who knows what he's going to do.
That'd
At
be
one
interesting.
point, Lauren Michael owned it,
Right.
and they were talking about doing a Lassie musical on Broadway.
If they
We
did
never
another
think.
movie or if they did another movie or something, would you like to be involved even
Oh,
peripherally?
sure. Depending, I'll be the old grandpa. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. All right.
My
That's cool.
hair's starting to go, but I can grow a beard. Or we can put some fake hair up there.
Yes,
We'll get
you can actually fall in a well. That'll
care
be
of
where
it.
you start out.
Give me some extensions or something. It'll work.
All right, I know you do public appearances and stuff. I mean, I saw you recently at San Jose Con. I think you were most recently at Bakersfield Con.
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
various appearances.
With
Anything coming up in the next couple months or anything? You're taking a break or
we're taking a break now. We just got home. We had to drive home 450 miles on New Year's Eve. Was not fun. No, it was not fun. I mean, I'm sorry, not Thanksgiving Eve, but
Yeah.
it was not fun.
Hmm.
No, we're home. We're staying here. Next year, I don't really have anything, but if people just can go to my website, jonprovost.com, and it has, where
All right.
it different, well, have where interviews are going to be or appearances.
Yeah.
And if we're in your town, you can leave a little note there with an address. And
Yeah.
then if we're going to be near your town, we'll send you an email or a card or something to let you know.
Okay. And then you sell signed photos and all sorts of things
All that,
on the
yeah,
website.
all
Yeah.
that stuff. And
And of,
now we have our spray mix and
yeah.
go to sell too.
And of course, since I bumped into you again in person, I got you both to sign the book. So there, thank you.
And that oh yeah, definitely original there. Definitely original.
So
Well,
you can get your signed book from the website. There we go.
yeah, no, we'll bump into each other again at one of the shows for sure.
Yes.
I
Yep.
remember when they were called autograph shows.
Yes. Yeah. And I've been to
Yeah.
those too, but I like the ones that have other things than just autographs because,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
no, I love the cons. Oh
yeah,
God, well, it's great to walk the different Comic Cons. I mean, because if nobody's ever been, you've got to go. I mean, it's not just
right.
comics; it's everything, and people dress up, and it's crazy. Great place to find stuff. I find all kinds of stuff for the grandkids.
Hmm.
It's and if you're into Star Wars or any of
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of stuff, it's that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're missing it.
Yeah.
And then they throw in some of us, and people go, "Wow, I didn't know you were going to be here."
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like is you go to a toy show and then hey, there's somebody I know. And you
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
Butch Patrick. I met him at one of the toy shows. I met Cindy Williams once. I met
yeah.
the two of the ladies from Three's Company over just lots of people over the years. So it's
Oh yeah, no,
fun.
it's and it's worth it, and you're saying it yourself. It's fun.
Yeah,
So and
and
that's why we do it. That's why I do it. I know sometimes you're someplace and you see that person that they don't they're not having fun doing this. Then why are they here?
you're right.
If you're not
Yeah,
having fun, don't do it.
yeah.
So
And then I'll give one more plug for your wife's book because it's here.
oh, she will love that.
Top of
Yes,
the
Top of the
Mountain, the
Mountain.
Beatles at Shea Stadium,
Amazon, go
1965.
grab it. Or
And I will say, because you probably don't know this, I
okay.
agreed, and I'm saving the money right now to go on Charles F. Rosenay's Liverpool trip, which he's done for over 40 years. I've never gone, and
Oh
so
wow. Oh
and I don't
wow.
want to be
Does
like
Lori know?
95 when I go on a trip somewhere. So trying to go out there now. So
Well, I
that'll be
will tell
next
Lori
August.
about that.
Yeah. So,
Well, that sounds like
if you're
that.
interested, I could send you a link, and maybe we can all go on the same trip.
Oh, she would. Oh, yeah. No, that's one place she wants to go. There
Okay,
in Ireland, close
very,
by.
very cool.
All right.
Okay, well, John, it was a pleasure talking with you again and
It
getting to know
definitely
you
was.
much
Thank you.
better. Because I've seen you over the years, and I probably said hi, and then please sign my book. And that's about it.
Well,
So,
and we
yeah,
change.
yeah,
We
yeah,
change. Things change.
yeah. All right, and hope to see you again
All
sometime, and
right.
Lori as
Sounds good.
well.
Peace to
And
everybody.
I thank you very much. And
All
that
right.
wraps it up for another episode of the Fun Ideas Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.